Right, anyway, we're gonna get started on this tier list. Oh yeah, Lawrence Blood's theme. It should always be louder. Yeah, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, the mic can go to about. We'll go to about here. That's like super loud. It's almost maxed out now. So yeah, so this is like the last tier list before the 2. It's 2.10, isn't it? 2.10. I mean, effectively, it's just 2.5 changes from SNK that is coming with the Dualon patch. Something that like massively excited for. They've already released a teaser video. This tier list was done before obviously the teaser video was done, which was yesterday. Not that that video affects anything here. All it does is it gives us some context as to who could be higher and who could be lower, right? In theory, right? Because that's like, this is like super early. The video really doesn't change too much, right? In my opinion, but I'll get to that in a moment. So yeah, let's just get straight into it, right? So A plus, these are like the best characters in the game, in my opinion. I know. SNK literally the everything in the video was just stuff. I think the one thing people ask for, and it's something that I see recur a lot in their games, is for things to transfer over to the next round, because they never do, right? Every single round it's fresh, just like Guilty Gear, right? Every single round is like, right, okay, start from the beginning, right? And usually I think that's a very fair mechanic, because if you had, for example, Nudged collecting her collecting tokens, right, on her dropkick, and then going into the next round with a level 3 dropkick in this game, you could theoretically explode in 2 touches. Like, you could proper die, right, in 2 touches with level 3 dropkick. Anytime juggle as well. So I think it's fair. But I think the way that they've handled Rock's install is pretty fair as well, because it's 3 bars, right? If you're spending that level of investment, then you probably should be getting some sort of long-term reward. But you know, we'll get into that momentarily. Yeah, so A plus. These characters are like the best characters in the game. I think that overall the difference between A plus and A is either like execution. So like, for example, I think like Luong could easily be just as good theoretically as Isla, but the combos that she has to do are incredibly difficult, right? Same for K-Dash, and also to a similar sort of degree, but obviously not as much. I would say Hayden, if you end up doing his like raw max cancel combos off of EXDP, right? However, I will say that Rio and Hayden in the A tier, I think that they struggle with some button omnipotence grounded. In the air, there's no problem, right? I mean, I think Rio's jump D is exceptional. I think, well, obviously, Hayden's jump CD is one of the best jump CDs in the game, if not the best jump CD in the game. Especially when you consider range and startup, right? Because I think it roughly starts up in the same amount of frames as Cronin's, but Cronin's has not got as much range as his, especially horizontal range, right? Which is good for him because he's all about range control, right? Whereas Cronin's all about getting in there and applying that plus frames off the jump CD, right? So I think in Rio's and Hayden's case, I think it's like a little bit. If they had like omnipotent grounded buttons, then there wouldn't be any dispute as to them being higher. And I mean, it's surprising to say that because Rio has like probably one of, if not the best close Ds in the game. And then also you've obviously got Hayden with like solid grounded buttons like Crouch C, Far B, and Sweep. And it's still not enough because, quite frankly, Kyo's stand CD is just that omnipotent, right? It is just that good. And it's not like it was buffed either. They just completely forgot to change it from the previous patch. They looked at Yashiro, they looked at Kula, they looked at Chizuru, they looked at all these characters that are being used, but no one was using Kyo to that super effective level, right? Because you didn't need to. You didn't need to put in that level of work when Yashiro existed, in my opinion. But yeah, he fell through the cracks, and it shows, right? It really shows. Similar thing for Cronin. Like, some of these buttons are just super good, grounded. Farsi, in my opinion, he just has the best Farsi in the game. I mean, whether it's a free hit confirm into EX Fireball, or whether you're using all 6 for the quick max confirm, it's just super good, man. Like, you know, very fast for what it is. Easy hit confirm. Yeah, Kyo needs, yeah. The thing is, Kyo, I think in terms of the A+, right? I think Kyo is probably the fairest character in A+, right? Because you need to be able to fundamentally play KOF very well. You know, checking hops, checking full jumps. Like, you can't give the opponent any quarter. Even though he's got a DP, and yeah, in theory, you can just mash out of block strings with DP and stuff like that, right? As Kyo, you want to be controlling the match all the time. Like, you know, even if they're full screen, you know, it's like, right, okay, I am controlling what you're going to do, yeah? I am just going to throw out red kick and get my plus frames. If you jump, I am going to DP you and take my turn back, yeah? Now, I don't think he needs to YOLO. I don't think he needs to YOLO a bit. I think, like, if you look at Xiaohai, players like Xiaohai, players like Decao, I'm talking like top level, right? Stuff that I try and learn from, yeah? It's always good calculated risks, yeah? It's always like, right, okay, he's at this range. I know that, like, jump D is going to hit them. It's when you wrecker in. I mean, the thing is, wreckering in, it's not... It's a check. The wrecker's just a check, right? It's a low-risk check. That's what wrecker is. It's not a way to get in and apply offense. Like the high-low part of the wrecker, people get hit by that in Europe because, like, we're not good. I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, people get hit by that because we're not good. There are players that deal with it very well. Like, obviously, like, the top 3 players, I think, from Versus Fighting. Bublin, Christina, Luigi. They deal with it well, right? They either just take the overhead or they backdash the low, right? Yeah, but the thing is, we saw it in Japan, but I would argue that Paul's is just not a good example of it, like, working. I mean, the only reason to say that Paul's is a good example of it working is that if 2 players are of equal skill, and then it's like, right, okay, yeah, they're getting opened up by the low, and they're taking the full combo, right? But in terms of, like, high level play, I just don't think the wrecker mix-ups are that effective, right? If you look at top 8 for... Yeah, Genet's always safe, but the thing is, wrecker is pretty much always safe unless you really poorly space it. Like, if you do, like, point blank close C wrecker, then yeah, you're gonna be in trouble. But there are so many ways to make wrecker safe, and like I said, it is literally just a check, right? It's to push you back, it's a check, and it allows you to set up stuff like stand CD. It allows you to set up stuff like wrecker into another wrecker, not as like a wrecker chain, but it's 2 separate wreckers. It forces them to be hesitant, so they're down backing a lot. There's just a lot of mind games involved when it comes to the wrecker, but I just never see it as the 50-50, because I just do not think the 50-50 is really where you're getting your money's worth. If you land the low launcher, then yeah, like, you are gonna have a ton of damage. But yeah, anyway, like, yeah, Kyo, just omnipotence buttons and just incredible safety. Same thing for Janet, right? It's just like, dive kick. In my opinion, I think dive kick is the best move in the game, right? If you master Harrier B, it is fucked. To be honest with you, it's fucked. You can make it plus. It's a launcher. It low crushes. Like, as soon as you go into dive kick stance, it's like, what, like 7 frames? Like, just incredibly quick, high priority, just so good, right? Crazy Ivan, safe on block, like, you can literally poke with it. Like, the way that Bublin plays that character in the Kyo versus Janet matchup, because he doesn't like the Kyo versus Kdas matchup at the start. He just doesn't like it that much. So he plays Janet instead. He is literally just doing rock, paper, scissors, but he has just a little bit more safety because you can't punish Ivan. You have to guard cancel roll before it comes out. So he'll just do stand jab Ivan, or he'll mix that up with neutral jump into a button or like backdash dive kick. Yeah, and he's just trying to create as much hesitancy as possible, and that's what Janet's all about. She literally creates so much hesitancy so that the opponent gets frustrated and tries to jump, and then boom, EX hind. Or alternatively, they start getting hit by stuff like Fare into Ivan. She gets the corner, and then it's just so hard to get out. Between Harrier B being like one of the best moves in the game, and her buttons, it's just incredibly strong. Instant overhead, like excellent like aerial buttons. Obviously, one of the best anti-airs in the game in quarter circle forward BD. Just incredibly strong. Corner carry is insane. That's another thing, right? All of these characters in A+ and A, their corner carry is absolutely mental. The only one I would probably say is not exceptional is probably Haydn, because most of the time he ends his combos in Stormbringer, and obviously that's side swaps, right? And ending in flash kick is just not that good. It's good if you want to kill by going into like Final Bringer, the super, but it's not really like, it's not optimal, right? You're better off like not doing that. In my opinion, you're better off just not doing that. But yeah, that's just me. What is going on with this freaking playlist? Yeah, loot the playlist, and then we're just gonna go here. Thank you. Sorry about that. And like, yeah, Cronin, just like super, like I was saying earlier, just super omnipotence again, right? Like Farsi, such a good grounded button, one of the best grounded buttons in the game. Crouch A, in my opinion, he has the best crouch A in the game. It is almost a quarter screen long, right? For a crouch A, absolutely absurd, and he can cancel into slide to make it either plus or have that frame trap with the cancel with EX Fireball, which is a very low risk frame trap, right? Especially when blocked. When blocked, there's nothing they can do, but obviously they can guard cancel the slide, but that obviously adds in additional mind games, which is actually favorable for Cronin, because if they guard cancel off slide, you're like massively plus, right? Jump CD is just so good. Like the overhead, like every time you land overhead, it's a safe jump. You have a safe jump guaranteed. DP into super, just basically the combo for KOFXV at this point. It is synonymous with the game. And even without that, right, his like half bar combos, 1 bar combos, good damage and good set play afterwards, right? That's one thing I forgot to mention, like the combos for these characters as well, very high damage, very high corner carry. Even Cronin's is just like excellent corner carry with quarter circle back D after the crumple with EX Fireball. There's not much I need to say about Cronin. He is that guy. Yeah, he is that guy. And then Isla, some people were like asking me, why is Isla top tier, right? Like, you know, they were like, oh, I don't think she's top tier, I think she's an A. Bublin, literally, as soon as I sent this tier list out, Bublin messaged me and was like, thank you, man. Like, I'm glad that you recognize that this character is insane. And she is insane, right? I don't think she got loads of changes from what I remember going into 2.0, but just her being a small character in terms of hurt boxes changes everything, because it changes how her hitboxes and her hurt boxes interact. Obviously, SNK didn't look at that, right? It's just like, right, we're going to make her smaller, but we're just going to keep the hitboxes the same. So, like, yeah, Isla's the character I think will get away with murder. I think I was talking to Christina, and I said the exact same thing. But I think there's a few characters that definitely are candidates for getting away with murder. But we just have to wait and see. I mean, I also said Luong will get away with murder. And I also said, like, I think Iori will probably get buffed. And he kind of did, right? We know that he's got a damage buff in Season 2.5. So, you know, that will be interesting to see. But yeah, Isla is just like, with the hurt box reduction, she has some of the best normals in the game. I mean, her and Isla share some of the best instant overhead jump-ins in the game. Jump D from Janet is just exceptional anyway, and Jump C from Isla is just like, it's a good air to air, it's good air to ground, instant overhead, You can't even really like low crush it with like a crouch B. You have to like either DP or bust. In my opinion, like probably the best jump seat in the game, like without a doubt, right? Obviously we could talk about like Yoshiro and Iori, but just in my opinion, like and obviously Shermie, but this button right here is absolutely mental, like, and it's a recurring theme for her aerial buttons, right? Jump CD's like excellent air to air, like one of the best jump CDs in the game. Jump D's just like excellent taco. You know, tons of hit stun as well. It's not like a Yori's where, you know, you can hit it high and miss the combo. As long as you do the close jab link, you are getting it every single time. In my opinion. And then just safety as well, like buttons on the ground, like Farsi, just like half screen range into like to back the quarter circle back B. With the stop cancel, it is just so good, and it's like super easily hit confirmable as well by doing like far C into to back, and then, or is it called to? I think it's called to front, right? It's called to front. The way that you can hit confirm that by either canceling it into the stop or just letting it travel is just so good for like a button like that, right? For getting like good damage. Which is another thing. You know, high damage, just a recurring theme, right? These characters have excellent damage, excellent corner carry. She can choose to either spend like EX moves or go straight for the super. Both of them net them like interesting combos. Like with the EX combo, you're getting like good damage and the reset, and then with the super combo, you're always getting the safe jump. So just very versatile character. I think the only thing she's probably weak in is the Firewall game, but her Firewall game's kind of unique, you know. The heavy one is literally just to try and zone. But I like to think of the light one as an anti-air, and even though it's like a high risk anti-air, it covers the angle, right? It's coming in from the top ropes, from an aerial position. So it's most certainly a viable anti-air for a hop, but obviously, you know, for full jumps, it's just not the one, right? That's where crouch C comes in, and again, probably the best crouch C in the game, right? In my opinion, even better than like Yoshiro's and like Rio's and, you know, similar characters with excellent crouch Cs. Her crouch C is just the best crouch C in the game. And then yeah, going down to A, like I mentioned before, I think this is mostly executional based. K-Dash is like exceptional. The fact that he can do Farsi, yeah, low profile plus count, yeah, exactly, right. For crouch C, it's just insane. It's just so good, right? Yeah, K-Dash. I can't believe they gave him Farsi whiff cancels. Like, that is just absurd. It needs to go. I'm fed up of seeing Farsi whiff cancel into Iron Trigger. I really am, right? It's just like super brain dead, sort of neutral, right? But anyway, that's just me, right? Yeah, K-Dash has got like some of the best meaties in the game. Probably the best meaties in the game. I mean, unless you're point blank, then they can throw you. But if you're point blank and throwing Iron Trigger, you've done something massively wrong. Yeah, you never need to be point blank when doing Iron Trigger. So Iron Trigger being the meaty is just the one, right? Obviously, you get combos off the meaty very easily. And then, you know, excellent assortment of buttons. I mean, I think Far C is excellent. I think Far B is like relatively decent as a check. But Freenel complains about everything, man. Like Freenel just is vocal. He's just vocal, right? Like, obviously, like, I'm not gonna tell him he can't complain, but like, yeah, he's just very vocal about his opinions. I mean, he's even been like the last 3 days. Every single day, I think he's been like, oh yeah, they're gonna take away reversal throw. It's the only way to make Duolong good. They're gonna take away reversal throw, and it's just like, dude, like, you've been talking about this for 3 days. Maybe just chill out a little bit. Like, chances are they're not gonna change the system because they would have done it already. But we'll see. He might be correct. But anyway, yeah, like excellent meaties. Good grounded buttons, good aerial buttons. Combo damage is absolutely mental, but you need the execution behind it. And the zoning game is exceptional, right? It's just like counter zoning at its finest. The recovery on some of the stuff that he's doing is really strong. The options that he has on one trigger are great. And he has excellent options for like crouch confirms, for heavy confirms, light confirms. Anytime juggle is really, really good just to get the corner as well. And the way that he can meet and manage is great. Like, don't get me wrong, the character's burning a lot of bar, but every single time he's burning bar, you are expecting a ton of damage, right? CDP giving you a safe jump is excellent. Like, he's also safe jump galore, right? If you're landing throw or you're landing CDP, which either or you're doing a lot of, right? You know, you are getting that safe jump. You are just like anywhere as well, just safe jump, safe jump, safe jump. So, you know, he can loop the situations really well. I mean, I can see him. I can definitely see him getting nerfed. I can see a couple of things getting changed about him as well. But we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see. Like, I think that Farsi should definitely keep the cancel, but I just don't think it should with cancel. But like I said, a couple of days from now, we're gonna know what's going on. Luong is like, in my opinion, like, what got some of the best grounded buttons in the game, and her damage is insane as well. Stand CD. If they don't change stand CD, that is going to be the next stand CD you see every single match. I'm telling you right now, this character is absolutely bonkers. The damage, I think she has the best damage in the game if you can do the combos, right? Even higher than K-Dash, which is crazy to me, right? Excellent aerial buttons with jump CD, jump A, jump D. Excellent grounded buttons with stand CD, crouch B, close D. Good, really, really good anti-air in crouch C as well. I think crouch C into light snake tamer, quarter circle forward A, is probably one of the best anti-airs in the game if landed effectively, as in counter hit, because you're just getting a full combo every single time for at least half their health. As long as you got a bar and a half, right? The only problem is obviously, as I've alluded to, is that she is super expensive. But you don't really mind that because the reward, the corner carry, the damage, everything that you're getting with the character deserves it. Like, if you're putting in the bar and you're killing the character, there should be no complaints from anyone, yeah? Except from the person that may have just died. So, you know, that's that, right? Hopefully she gets nerfed, because otherwise she's just going to be right up in A+ after the patch, right? Rio Zakazaki, my personal favourite. I think I have the most fun with him in the game. I have to say, I think that his damage is kind of absurd. I don't know if they'll take it away. I think they probably should. I think Rambu into Hoshokoku and into Combo Extender is absolutely mental. And I think if he keeps it, then you're going to still see a lot of this character as an anchor. I think the buttons are relatively fine. I do think that like close D being a low is mental because the proximity on it is absolutely insane. I think that should probably be changed to a mid. But yeah, excellent grounded buttons. Hoken going half screen is just a mental change. I don't know why they thought that was a reasonable idea, but here we are. Like, you know, he can just play neutral from like half screen away, which is something that he's never really had. You know, probably the best DP in the game. I think it's even better than Cronin's. If I'm being real with you, I think it's even better than Cronin's because of the way that you can get counter hit confirms, right? You think Rio would only be minor nerf, same damage? Potentially. I mean, I do think that the fact that close Ds are low is a bit much. I think that probably will get changed, but we'll see. If it's the same damage, you are going to see a lot of this character going forward because even with the nerfs, right? He would still be an exceptional character to pick up going forward, right? I do think the damage needs to change because him two-touching people, yeah, it's 3 bars, right? I get it, it's 3 bars, but two-touching people is just not good game design, in my opinion, right? In a fighting game. Even if it is 3 bars, yeah? But yeah, that's just me. And then Hayden is just like super good zoning, super good rush down. Probably the weakest in A, but like not by much, right? Not by much. Him and Rio are like fighting in A, and it's close, right? Hayden's got like excellent flash kick, great fireball flash kick game, excellent buttons. Like I said, best jump CD in the game. yeah, command grab, gets health back, like, excellent damage. Jump C is just absurd, yeah. His jump C is like one of the best cross-ups in the game, in my opinion. It is just ridiculous. So yeah, that's the difference between A plus and A, in my opinion. It's either the utility, which I think that Rio and Hayden kind of lack in terms of the grounded game, or it's the executional barrier, such as K-Dash and Luong. And I think A plus is just that little bit easier, that little bit more straightforward to execute, while also being equally as omnipotent in terms of their grounded buttons and general toolkit, right? A minus is where it gets to be a little bit more interesting. I think that A minus, like some of these characters in A minus, they are kind of just as good as like Rio and Hayden, right? Like you could argue that like Geese or Iori, or even Benny to a certain degree, right? Like they have like equally sick buttons. I think the problem, like equally sick buttons, equally sick toolset, right? I think the problem with A minus is probably the damage, right? Because outside of Shermie, who's obviously high risk, high reward anyway, right? I think their damage output is just not really comparable. Like, obviously it's a case by case basis, right? I think like Benny's doing similar things to Kyo, and he's just not getting the same damage. And I think that Geese is comparable to Rio, but also not getting the same damage, right? They're just lacking in the damage department overall. But like, then you've got characters like Yuri and Kim, where it's just like their damage is just through the roof, in my opinion. But the problem with them there is that they just do not have the assortment of grounded omnipotence that the upper tiers have. Like, yeah, Yuri stand CD is good, but outside of that, it's really difficult to lay the law with Iori. Like, you have to constantly jump in, which is obviously high risk, right? Especially in a meta where you've got like, you know, excellent DPs with K-Dash, Kyo, Rio, Cronin, stuff like that, right? Iori kind of has to constantly take risks to get in. Fireball is like okay, but it's so easily jumpable that if they do it, you're going to die. Like it is what it is, right? But like I'm saying, I think A minus is like knocking on the door to the A tier, but they're just kind of missing that little bit extra omnipotence that they have, that ease of accessibility, right? I think like Shermie could definitely be a contender for top anchor next patch if she doesn't get changed. I think they should look into her damage. If they don't change her at all, she is going to be teeth. She is going to be teeth because her jump C is absolutely insane with the close A, close C link. One person that I thought that, you know, one thing that I've had is people saying, oh, why is Kim in A minus? Kim in A minus is like super simple neutral and it's strong as well. It's not terrible, right? I like sweep. I like crouch C. Close D being a low, excellent. It's a lot of meter for Shermie, but you know, we can also just talk about how much meter Cronin is using, or talk about how much meter K-Dash is using, or how much meter Rio and Luong are using. It isn't a huge factor when you're taking out characters. Like using bar and saving bar, like that's just par for the course for these characters, yeah? Like when Cronin's doing DP super, right? We don't sit there and say, wow, that's a lot of bar, right? We say, wow, that's a lot of damage, yeah? That's what we say, yeah? With Shermie, it's the same. Like, I don't know why people are saying, like, oh, yeah, it's a lot of meter. Like, you got to spend a lot of bar for Shermie. It's just like, well, she is kind of spending the same amount of bar. It's just that I think she has to spend a little bit more. I think instead of 3.5, I think she has to spend 4. But even her 3.5 bar combo is a lot of damage, right? So, you know, for me, I don't really see the meter investment as an issue for Shermie. Yeah, I can understand that. I think, like, she does struggle to build meter, right? She kind of has to go for, like, extended blockstring pressure, and, like, the difference for her is that she doesn't have a move like slide that can keep her plus, right? She literally just has to do jump C, crouch jab, and then mix up with another jump C, or like do a little micro walk into crouch B, and just try and go for like extended mix up sort of block string pressure, right? So yeah, she has a little bit more risk inherently because she's a grappler as well, right? Which is obviously absolutely fine. But in saying that, Tatsu is just really good anyway. Like Tatsu going through fireballs, crossing up. It's one of her main setup tools as well, off of combo. It's just really, just like, I think she's like candidate for top next game if she doesn't get changed in the patch coming up. But yeah, Kim like, sick solid neutral. Not tons of buttons that are good. I think like in Kim's jumping arsenal, I think only jump D and jump CD are good. Obviously, you have to use jump C and jump A for jump-ins, but it is what it is, right? You're jumping with a button. It covers the scenario, yeah. And he's got good grounded buttons as well with stand CD, crouch D, crouch C, and yeah, that's basically it really. Like it's super straightforward. Crouch B as well. I think crouch B is good. But what he excels with is the damage. Like every single time this guy's touching you, the damage is high. And if it's not the damage that's the problem, it's the corner carry. Because if he gets you into the corner, then that damage goes up even higher. And it's easy to do with his assortment of safe jumps and corner carry moves, right? So yeah, so that's A-. I think A-, obviously very, very strong characters, but just missing a little bit in that omnipotence. Kind of a little bit harder to apply your gameplay, but very, very strong. They are in the A tier, right? Then, this is the part where I've deviated from some other tier lists, right? The B tier. So I noticed that a lot of people were just making this giant chasm of B tier characters, right? Like, okay, this is the mid tier. There are loads of mid tier characters, right? And effectively, if you really wanted to, you could merge B plus and B together. If you really wanted to, that could just be it, right? However, I do think that there needs to be, especially after all this time of playing 2.0, there needs to be a clear, definable gap as to who is a better mid-tier character than others, right? And I think I kind of have it here. And it's mostly because they are similar in the A tier in that in either the damage is really high or that their grounded toolset is just really like strong. Grounded or aerial toolset is just really straightforward and strong. Like for example with Andy, right? His grounded and aerial neutral is strong. It's not brain dead or anything like that, right? But he has easy go-to buttons. Like if you're unsure of what to do with Andy, jump CD is just a very good button to do, right? But even besides that, his damage output is just absolutely insane. And it's similar for Yuri as well. Like, if you're completely unsure on what to do with her, you can easily, like, squeeze in a jump D and be relatively okay, right? Like, these characters have similar traits to A- in that there isn't too much risk to some of their strategies, right? Similar thing with Clark. Like, you can fish with crouch D and force them to jump, and then you can go for your anytime juggle, which then nets you the same situation, right? There's just lots of like utility here, right? Athena, just like excellent fireball character. I'd probably say I think that Athena is probably the best fireball character in the game, but I think that obviously her DP is a bit finicky. And she doesn't have the damage output, but in terms of her neutral tools and her special tools, like having the reflect, having 4 different types of fireballs in terms of speed, right? She has 2 fireballs, but 4 different speeds, teleports and DPs, and the command grab. She just has an excellent tool set, but I just think she's a little bit hard to approach with in terms of picking her up. She's probably the most complicated fireball character in the game, right? Like zoning character, other than obviously Haydn is like a bit of a beast, right? So like it's Haydn, and then in my opinion it's Athena. She kind of has this weird problem of being very stubby sometimes, but then also having really sick like far-reaching normals. Crouch C is like still like one of the best crouch Cs in the game in terms of horizontal coverage. Super strong crouch C, right? But then you have buttons like crouch A, which is just nothing, or far A, which is just nothing, or far C, which is just like a little, like, it goes nowhere, right? So she kind of is this amalgamation of like either very good normals or just very bad normals, in my opinion. Ash damage output is just crazy. Yeah, crouch C also because she shrinks the hurt box. Absolutely. I mean, her crouch C is so good, and it always has been, right? It is the go-to button most of the time. Yeah, with Ash, just the damage output's insane. Like, when you play Bubbling, you are like constantly scared of like running into crouch B. I have run into crouch B so many times that now when I play against him, I just chill out. I'm like, look, if you want to jump in, I will just take the jump in, yeah? If you want to run up and crouch B me, then you can just run up and crouch B me. If you want to run up and throw me, and I don't take the throw, then you can take the throw. Because I don't even want to take crouch B so bad into death. Because that is what Ash is good at, right? Don't get me wrong, zoning game is solid. Flash kick is very good. I think he's probably got the best flash kick in the game, in my opinion. But the damage is really where it's at. And the only reason why he's not in A- is because the combos execution is hard. He has like proper hard combos, in my opinion. I think Rock has the utility overall that even though he got nerfed heavily, I still think he's in B+. Yamazaki, similar thing, like he has excellent utility, but I think defensively he struggles a bit, especially when he's pressing certain buttons. Like in certain scenarios, you're kind of forced to do like a hop check with far A, and the far A is just not that good in my opinion. Or like sometimes you're forced to like check buttons with crouch C, and the hurt box on that is also not particularly good. So yeah, so that's like massive problems as well. Orochi Yashiro is like, in my opinion, worse than Yashiro because he inherently has more risk involved, right? I mean, the buttons are pretty much identical. The only changes being is like his crouch C and far C are better, right? But when you consider the safety involved with normal Yashiro versus the, like, you have to be super on point with Oyash to get proper mileage out of him. I think it's fair, right? Yeah, well, I think the jump Cs are the same. I think the jump Cs are identical. It's just the, oh yeah, and it's close B. It's close B that's different, right? So he can't do, so normal Yashiro can't do close B, close A, crouch C anymore, but Orochi Yashiro can, right? So he still has excellent frame traps off of close B, whereas Yashiro kind of has to do just like jump C, close A, crouch C, right? So even though his frame traps aren't as good as normal Yashiro, sorry, even though his frame traps are better than normal Yashiro's, they kind of have to be because of the inherent risk that comes with his special moveset. Outside of the jumping punch, the quarter circle back A thing, or sorry, the quarter circle back punch move, where he jumps into the air and slams you down, there is no safe special move for him. Everything carries risk. It's like Shermie, right? There's very few specials that allow him to play safe, except that at least with Shermie, she has Tatsu to keep safe. But in this case, he has like a really long start-up jump-in that is just not that good, right? And then with obviously normal Yashiro, he just has the safety of half circle forward A, to really just make the character more well-rounded, in my opinion. Like, having that move just allows normal Yashiro to whiff punish so effectively, whereas Yashiro, he is forcing whiff punishment, or he's forcing his way in, and that's it, right? Obviously, just my opinion, but yeah, otherwise, they are kind of almost identical. Like, I even think for B and B, I think Oyash has more damage, but he just doesn't have the corner carry. So yeah, there's that. I think Sylvie, very underrepresented in KOF community at the moment. I think she's really strong. Like, excellent. Well, she has this really unconventional moveset, but it's all super safe stuff outside of like doing DP or quarter circle forward K. Just like really I think the problem that she struggles with, right? I'd argue that 6B into CD is Oyash's safe string. Now that's not. I don't know if that's really a safe string. I don't think that's really like. I think it's a safe string of the opponent you're playing against. Like either doesn't have a DP or just doesn't have reactions, because really they can beat that with buttons if they're fast enough. Yeah. Yeah. No, not in the corner. I get that. Right. But even a well-timed crouch B can hit it out. Right. I would probably say that instead of that string, I would just stick to doing, you know, a button into either forward A or 6B and then just end it there. If you're going for the frame trap, then yeah, you just end it on the command normal and not the CD. I don't think ending it on the CD is like a super good idea, at least not most of the time, right? If you're doing the CD, it's because you're trying to counter hit frame trap someone, yeah? That's just my opinion. Yeah, Sylvie, I think the problem with Sylvie is just she hasn't got the buttons for it, right? Like, in this meta where, like, buttons, like, you're fighting against characters like Yashiro, Rio, Kyo, Janet, like, all these characters with sick buttons, she just does not have the buttons. Everything else is perfect. She just does not have the buttons, right? Then, like, the difference between B plus and B is, like I said, that safety and utility, the damage. Like, the best way to compare it is to look at Andy and Robert. Robert is not a bad Shoto at all, right? He is a solid Shoto. There is just not enough reward, right? And it's like, what's another good example? I would say, let me think. Like, okay, Dino versus Clark or Yashiro, right? I think that overall, like, yeah, Dino has like sick normals, but there are just too many gaps in what he's doing, right? Like, Crouch A is exceptional, but the fact that you can, like, you know, get smothered really quick due to his height, and he doesn't really have that, like, quick anti-air, right? He has to mash Crouch C as hard as he can and hope that it lands, right? In order to really get opponents off him. I think stuff like that just doesn't really help. But, like, yeah, basically, in this tier, that's effectively what's going on here. You've just got characters with a little bit less utility overall, a little bit less damage, a little bit less, like, easy neutral, in my opinion. Like, don't get me wrong, there are characters that have easy neutral buttons. Like, when you play Ralph and you press Crouch C, that is an easy button to press, right? If they're in range, you just press Crouch C. But there are risks to Crouch C. You can't whiff cancel Crouch C. So if they hop over it, there's a massive risk. Whereas, like, with Clark, if you whiff Crouch C, you can whiff cancel it into Gatling for anti-airs. So you know, there's just a little bit more risk involved in B. And then finally in B minus, I think these are characters that have, like, pretty glaring weaknesses, right, overall. And then obviously C plus is like, these characters are just like dog shit, right? Like obviously, for example, with Leona, like, I still don't know why to this day that Leona, her flash kick is like completely inferior to Highland's flash kick. They're the same flash kick, but hers does not have full invul. Like, what is that about? Just give her full invul on the flash kick, right? Shingo is like, the thing with Shingo is that like a load of his things just work inoptimally, right? Like, he has a good close C, but it takes time to reach the ceiling for some reason. Whereas when Kyo does close C, it immediately hits the ceiling, right? Same with Yashiro and Yuri, but for some reason Shingo doesn't have that, right? And then, like, stuff like Rugao is just like, yeah, like, he has, like, taps, but there's no way to really exploit the system like other characters can when he gets only a far B. Like, if he does Crouch B, far B, he can't do EX Barrier. He's forced to just do Vanishing Rush, which is just not good enough, right? And then he also has problems with buttons. You know, I think that the far C, even though the change was a good change, I think that so one moment. Right, okay, there we go. Yeah, it's all good. Even though, like, the Far C is a good change to be cancelable, it still has huge whiff recovery, and, like, Far C into Vanishing Rush doesn't work everywhere. So, you know, it's just weird, right, in my opinion. Like, he just has these, like, weaknesses that are just there for the sake of being there. And then, oh man, Gonitz. Gonitz was so disappointing. I was expecting him to just be in B, right? Like, good zoning, like, you know, decent damage, gets mauled, right? But instead, it's just like he gets mauled, he has high damage, the zoning's a little bit off, but then you look at the damage from taps and it's just not there. It's just not there. Like, tap, tap, EX Rekka, and then into another series of Rekka is just not good enough, right? It's a self-time safe jump as well, so it's not particularly strong. Similar with like Holmo, right? Like, he can't do crouch B stand B, so he can't do crouch B stand B wind whack, which means that he has to rely on crouch A. In my opinion, he has the worst crouch A in the game. So how on earth are you gonna ever get proper confirms of that character? I'll never know. And then some of the characters are just too high risk, right? Like, I think like most of the stuff that Angel has to do to get into the opponent's grill, to get point blank, just requires like pure risk. Like, it's a very straightforward approach outside of EX Red Sky. But I think other than that, like, the character could easily be in B. I just think she struggles in neutral a lot. And then similar thing with like Ramon, like, he kind of just struggles in the neutral a bit. Even though like the Far C cancelable, you know, giving it a cancelable window is good. I think that's like easily his best change for the season. He still has to fight in that mid screen, and outside of doing feints, there's no real way to mix up the block string pressure effectively. Like, you can't like mix in dropkick. You can, and if it gets counter hit, you get loads of reward, but it's such a huge risk. And excuse me, when you do dropkick, you are committing. There's no way to change like dropkick into a feint, which I think should personally change, but that's just me. And then there's some characters that just don't do enough damage, like Chris. Like, Chris just hardly does enough damage, in my opinion. And then you got characters that just get absolutely mauled. Like I said, Gonitz is a prime example. I think Vanessa's another example. She can just absolutely get mauled. Same with Orochi Shermie. She can just get absolutely mauled. Even though she has great zoning, like, I think her zoning is very unique and very interesting, she can just get mauled super easily. And then finally, it's just C+. It's just these characters are just they just don't work, right? There was another candidate for C+. I was going to put Antonov in there, but I went against it simply because I think Antonov's buttons into damage output is just a little bit more reliable than, for example, doing you know, a Far C or a Crouch C with Maxima, right? Or trying to jump in with Maxima. Like, the floatiness of the jump and the slowness of the normals just make it really difficult for him to play. And he doesn't really have like good far cancelable normals, right? In fact, like, outside of Crouch C, he doesn't have any standing far cancelable normals, right? Crouch C is your go-to, and Crouch C is just, I just don't think it's that good, right? And then Billy just has tons of hurtbox issues. He gets mauled as well. There's no like consistent way to stop pressure with him. And it's just super hard to play. When you're fighting against Kyo with Billy, it's just like every one of your buttons are losing, in my opinion. And the damage doesn't even really make up for it. Like, Billy kind of has like mediocre damage, in my opinion. And then, yeah, Maxima has high damage, but when your whole character is just, right, I need to land counter hit Vapor Cannon, then you know that it's flawed, because good players are just going to look at how you use Vapor Cannon. And then if you don't use it a lot, they're going to be very confident in rushing you down. And then if you use Vapor Cannon a lot, they'll just force it to whiff. It's very, very straightforward fighting Maxima, in my opinion. And this is another character I had a lot of beef with. Like, people have been telling me, like, oh, no, Maxima needs to be in B-, needs to be in B-. You know, I had 3NL telling me, oh, yeah, Hentati's, like, super, super good with the character. That means the character has to be good, right? And that's not how tier lists work, mate. Like, if you want me to make an EMEA tier list and then put Entati like towards the top because he is an exceptional player, then I will do that. Like, I will happily do that because I think Entati isn't an exceptional player. But just because Entati is sick with Maxima doesn't mean that Maxima is good. It means that he is good, right? Katsuji, they're still. I mean, I'm talking about EMEA anyway, right? But another example, it's like, okay, so Antonov Rugal, right? I obviously lost that versus fight into Inferno Kong. I lost to the team of Antonov, Rugal, and Dinosaur, yeah? Now, just because I lost to Antonov and Antonov and Rugal, doesn't suddenly mean I'm going to be putting Antonov in B or Rugal in B. I still recognize their weaknesses, right? They are still there. It's the player that has to work around the weaknesses, right? And like I said, in my opinion, I think the utility in Rugal's special moveset is just good enough to be in B-. Just that alone is good enough to be in B-. And then Antonov's buttons mixed with damage is good enough to be in B-, but he is like one of the only characters that barely scrapes by. Same as like Gonitz. Gonitz is like super close to being in C+ as well. Once again, his damage output with his toolset just makes it so that he's that little bit more accessible, in my opinion. But yeah, it's like literally those characters are getting in on a you know, barely, right, just scraping by, yeah. And I mean that's basically the tier list, right? Really, that's what I think of the last version of the game. I've enjoyed this meta. I do think that this meta has been more interesting than most. But I am not upset to see our overlords of Janet and Cronin leave us. Hopefully, Isla and maybe Kyo can pack the bags with them.